Hello, everybody. This is Yakov Fain, and today I will be talking to my old friend, which I got to know back in the 90s. Back in the 90s, I arrived to United States, and I was looking for a job as a programmer. And Carl Blum was the person who helped me with the employment. But besides that, he helped me to understand this country. Hello, Carl.
Hello, Yakov. It's good
Yeah.
to see you.
Good to see you too, Carl. Back then, it was 1993. For me, a person who came from the USSR, actually USSR just got broken apart. I'm from Ukraine. Like 6 months after Ukraine became independent, so to speak, I arrived to the United States, and Carl Blum was for me like a symbol of a real American person, like a big Hollywood smile, strong man, knows how to talk the talk, and I learned a lot from him just by looking at him and talking to him. And I was told like urban legends, Carl, can you tell if it's true or no? There was a situation when you've been sick or ill, and then when you came back to Headhunter Recruiter Marketing, you bought like a half of the front page of New York Times saying that Carl is back. Is it so?
Well, the New York Times used to put pictures of me and the people that worked for me in the employment section, saying that I found senior employment for programmers and analysts and technical architects, and I would run that every 3 or 4 months, and it was good PR for my business.
And back then, you used to buy New York Times to find work, right? And classified section on Sunday or maybe even on Saturday, we knew the places where to get them first. I remember that.
Well, and I tried to reverse that by identifying people who were programmers in companies and recruiting them cold. Cold meaning that I had no relationship with them, and I had to vocally motivate them to see me. And then once they saw me, things worked out.
Mm. Maybe we could record a separate conversation on this part of your career. But at some point of your career, you decided to stop doing what you're doing and start helping veterans, people who came from the United States Army, to help them to find their place in real life, in civil life, so to speak. When did you start doing this, and how did it happen?
I went crazy. We had a soldier killed in Patterson who couldn't find a job, so he re-upped. He went back into the military and went to Afghanistan and was killed. And it was an outrage to me, and I spent the next 9 months working my way up the military chain to get to proper people so I would have access to the soldiers and veterans. My first job fair at Fort Dix turned out to be totally fraudulent. The military had set up a program where they brought 600 wounded veterans from Maine to Virginia out to West who had problems with traumatic brain injury, PTSD, and I had a week to assist them in what I would call their stream of consciousness. Their thread of excellence is actually what I would say. And I would define with the soldiers what they actually did in Iraq and Afghanistan and how it was applicable to American jobs. I placed, just to give you an example, I only worked with enlisted men because officers didn't have a problem finding a job. But one fellow who was a very, very sharp sergeant, I showed him how he was actually a project manager in a consulting firm, that each group that worked for him had a different function, had different responsibilities, and were trained to replace the person ahead of them if they were killed or wounded.
Basically, you showed him how to look at his previous assignment at work as if it was a situation in a corporation.
Yes, yes. I reversed. By the way, the military had nothing for the soldiers coming back.
And this is important part, because let's try to draw some analogies with what happens with soldiers in the USSR and what do they think of America. I've been reading in Russian, obviously, different articles on the subject, and I met people who went through the wars, and they assume that the United States is a rich country. They have huge budget for veterans, and they can afford everything for veterans, while USSR is a poor country, and that's why people are abandoned over there.
Well, it was a similar situation in the United States. The soldiers came back from deployment. They had 3 or 4 days at Fort Dix. I became the only civilian person allowed to speak to them first day back in country. And they had a phony program called TAP, supposedly to help them find work. But the first thing TAP told the soldiers was that we won't find you jobs. We're giving you information. In addition, all the soldiers had to do was sign in and not even go to the classes. It was a joke. So we found that the 60 or 70% of the enlisted men and women did not have jobs. So I finally, at this job fair, they didn't have one job offered that a soldier could have really applied for. It was the Defense Department. They were handing out trinkets and pens and telling the soldiers to send their resumes to the government, which was a joke. I spent 7 days working with the men and women for that job and breaking down their thread of excellence, teaching them how to translate their military experience to our commercial world, where a sniper had more skills in math, analytical, with understanding wind speeds and various components of hiding and living out alone for days at an end. So, they showed a capability of completing any task and understanding mathematically what was happening. Because I had soldiers initially write, they had 48 confirmed kills, and I would say to me, that's wonderful. I want to hug you. But if you said that to a company, you won't get a job.
So basically, you told them when you are on the interview, you shouldn't tell them, look, I killed 48 people. Right. And I know how to do it.
Yeah. So if you have a company that's bothering you, you can wipe them out. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to someone who became my erstwhile partner And he was very good strategically, and I was very good at placing men in jobs. So we built reverse consulting firms. We opened up Comcast, where we placed 70 soldiers by teaching them what were the questions they were going to be asked, what were the mathematical tests they would take, how to work the system. And Comcast wanted to work with us because they were not paying fees. We did the same thing with the state Department of DOJ, and we placed 80 people with them. But people called me and thanked me who had not gone through us, but soldiers had found out that the programs we had started, and they went running. We started a program with Prudential where they were training soldiers in computer technology. And if the soldiers lasted 9 months, they would be hired by Prudential. And this worked out wonderfully because 60 to 70 soldiers got hired.
And I assume that you pay for it, right?
Did it as volunteers. It was all pro bono. I would not have felt the joy and humbleness of making money on something like that. It was a gift given to me of previous skills that allowed me to help men who went out at night, who were visibly killed, and I had to help them.
Let me tell you the story that I know about the soldiers from the USSR who went to Afghanistan and then came back. First of all, the difference is that the war in Afghanistan that started like back in 1979 and lasted for 10 years was probably the first war that the USSR had in a different country. It was not the war that the USSR was supposed to protect themselves. Afghanistan didn't start the war or anything. It was unusual, first thing. Second thing is that the army back then was completely drafted. So it's not like whoever wanted to go to the army, they would go. No, you have to go. Third, they try to enlist people mainly from small towns and small villages, from simple families, basically. 18 years old guys would go there and get killed for no reason. It's not like they were defending their own land. And they did it. They did it on purpose. They didn't want the coffins to arrive massively to large cities. They call it cargo 200, груз 200. They didn't say it's a coffin. It's a cargo 200, meaning, or they would ask, how many 200s did we get? So there's so many, 5 or 10 or 20. And after that, people would come back. The war was over with no winner, no reason. People didn't know why did it even go there. Like 15,000 were killed, many more were wounded, and they came back. And the other problem is that if in the United States, the society didn't change that much while they went to war. In the USSR, it changed dramatically. Remember Perestroika?
Yes.
So even and Afghanistan ended, Afghan war ended right after it, maybe 2 years after. And people who would go and knew that the USSR is a country, yes, there are this and this not correct, but they would help you, they would give you a job, they would place you, the education is free, medicine is free, and everything. And then they went to war. Their friends were killed, they were killing, they were fighting, they saw like people who lost their legs and stuff. And then they came back home, and kind of a capitalism started back in the USSR. And all of a sudden, they see that there are different skills that are in demand. How to cheat, how to create business, maybe, how to do different things, and they were not equipped at all for these things. So what happens? We can talk later about the PTSD and stuff, but post-traumatic disorders. But the other thing is that nobody wanted them. So what did they do? They tried to find jobs in security, and also they were like in the 90s. There was a period where there was a lot of half legal or illegal activities, like racketeering and stuff. And these people would be hired to protect some rich guy, maybe, to participate in, it's not a gang, but they would be killing each other like when need be. Other than that, nothing. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The other thing is, if in the United States there is such a thing as therapist, people know more or less that if there is something wrong, you can go to a person, you can talk to him. Yes, it costs money. I don't know if you will tell me if this was funded in any way, but in the USSR, there was no such a thing.
There was no such a thing for our soldiers in America.
No?
First of all, they couldn't afford to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. For the state of New Jersey, they had one psychiatrist that would interview a soldier and decide if they had traumatic brain injury, PTSD, to discuss monies that they would get. Again, I went crazy because we needed 10, 15, 20 psychiatrists because the need was so great. What you're telling me about Russia is very similar to what I encountered. There were no jobs. There were no real programs to help them. The soldiers wound up living in cars, taking drugs, going to shooting galleries, which is where you shoot up the drugs. And there were many soldiers that did well, but 50% of our soldiers that came back didn't have jobs.
But Carl, there's one thing that I want to make clear. As I said, in the USSR, the additional problem that these veterans would have was that they were not appreciated as heroes because they didn't. It's not like World War II, where people were defending their own land. Because they were fighting for no special reason. You tell me, please, if this component exists or it doesn't exist. When people in the United States go to war, typically it's not like they are not drafted. They go to war and they're
all volunteers.
They're volunteers. They are deployed in Iraq or Iran or wherever. Not Iran, Iraq or Pakistan or Afghanistan. They know that it's their job. It's not like they're coming back from the war and saying, oh, it was immoral war or I'm having problem with that. They don't have problem with this part, right?
I didn't see that much, but I know of like Restrepo. Did you ever see that movie by Sebastian Junger, where 25% of the combat in Afghanistan was fought? And it was set up because we miscalculated a Taliban area, and they shot down 30 of our top veterans. So we planted different companies in that area to get revenge, and there was no revenge. The men, when they came back here, were treated as heroes.
See, this is not the case. They were
Well,
people were afraid of them. Afghans, he's an Afghan, meaning like half crazy guy, strong guy, and you don't know what to expect from him. That was the attitude of the civil population. So what they did, they started to meet with each other. It's like a brotherhood, and they would help each other somehow. That's all they had.
and we set up. Uh, we had a veterans advocate, a member of our 82nd Airborne, which was our elite paratroopers, that in the 101st. If we had problems with an applicant where we thought they may commit suicide, or they were taking drugs, or they were doing things harmful for themselves, we would go after them. And we would force the VA to put them in suicide watch and then to be part of a 45-day program. But we didn't have the manpower to do as much as should be done. But the fact that people say, thank you for your service is irrelevant if you don't have a good job. In the end, the only important thing was to get a good job. A human being defines themselves by the fact that they can make a living and support a family. And our soldiers came back and could not. So we wound up placing 900 veterans, hundreds with fracking, with trucking companies as managers, because that was analogous to the convoys. And they trusted each other. They didn't trust people who were not in the military. So it was a sheer freaky thing that they trusted me. I spoke to 3,500 veterans that came back from the New Jersey National Guard. We were then invited to Vermont to help them demobilize their troops, the Green Mountain Boys, which is something from the Revolutionary War. And the different states would ask us for help. But we could only do so much. But the word spread among the veterans what we had done. And the biggest thing I think that came out of our work is that we wouldn't allow a company to talk to veterans unless they brought managers who could hire people. And other organizations started doing this. And we changed the landscape, at least in the East, about the way veterans were treated.
What do you think? When sometimes on TV you can see all these commercials like send this much money and this will help veterans to live and so on. Are you concerned with this part? What?
Wounded warriors.
Yeah.
When I dealt with them 6-7 years, I lost your picture.
Okay.
6-7 years ago was total bullshit. They were businesses to make money.
It's like a non-profit to collect money for veterans, and then they would pay their salary.
They would pay their salaries. Like the head of Wounded Warriors was making over $500,000. We never found foundations that were really interested in the soldiers. They were businesses. And there were a lot of grants given out to help soldiers find work. But if you don't have the skill set to find work for people, it's irrelevant. There was one guy he was a Solomon, one of the original owners of Solomon Brothers, the brokerage firm. And he started a foundation. And the first thing they told the soldier was, we're not going to get you a job, but we'll meet you for a beer and chat with you. The soldier needed a job. And the word spread everywhere that we could do it. And we did it for 6 years till I got very ill. And now I'm starting to do it again.
When you are saying, what I want to say that many people who live currently in the post-USSR area, when they will hear what you're saying, they would be surprised that such a rich country as the United States of America doesn't have enough resources to help veterans. What do you think could be done differently?
They should hire the best recruiters in the industry. No, that's not a good answer.
Basically, you were an excellent recruiter, but you also needed to have enough money to afford to spend a big portion of your time helping for free. There are not so many recruiters.
We need the government to muscle businesses to make them hire a percentage of veterans, just as they do now with diversity. That would be very powerful. When I spoke to Citicorp, they were starting veterans at $10 an hour. Excuse me. Home Depot, $7.50 an hour. I would scream at them, we're not placing anyone with you. These men can't live on that. So I think if we had a government czar who really cared and the ability to muscle companies to hire X amount of soldiers, train them, and that would solve the problem.
But
excuse me?
Are these soldiers who came back, are they willing to get retrained, or maybe they would resist?
No, they were begging for it. The biggest thing I found, not the biggest, but one of the biggest things I found out, when someone joined our army, they were guaranteed a college education after they came out. And if you think about it for a minute, our soldiers were willing to die to get an education. And that's a very profound thought. Excuse me. So it wasn't patriotism for many of them. It was to get an education and then a job.
You mean when a person goes to the army, after that they would get enough money to pay for the education, right?
Yes.
And that's why they went in the first place.
And that's why they joined. They were taking a chance that they could die, but it was worth it to get a college education.
See, let's talk for a second about something else. When I talk to young people, it has nothing to do with veterans or with soldiers. They feel that they are cheated. So everybody's saying, go to the college, get a good education. They went to colleges, and especially if the college is elite college. They go out, they have a degree and like 200,000 loan that they need to pay for years. And on top of that, nobody wants to hire them as well.
Again, I placed about 100 people in college for fun, not for money, where I would pick out their skill in high school. I would find a department in the college that had that skill and help them interview to get the job. They should have courses in college the senior year with someone like me to place the people that are graduating. That every college should have programs that wind up with the person getting a good job.
But again, you cannot force people to hire someone. I mean, private businesses. I remember again back in the USSR, we had a situation like, say, I graduated with the degree applied math, and at the end there was a special procedure where everybody was placed somewhere to work somewhere. You may not like this area; it may be 1,000 miles from your home, but they would send you there, and you have an obligation to work there for 3 years. It's a must after college. Some people didn't like it, some people tried to dodge it, but placement was given. It was guaranteed that you would be placed. But in this society, how can you force a business to take people who don't have qualifications, who are just out of
Because
college?
the businesses get money from the government.
Oh,
All our big businesses get funded in certain areas from the government. If you notice, African Americans and Latinos are getting more jobs because they're exerting political pressure for diversity on all the companies, and the companies are succumbing. So if the government told Pfizer or Novartis or whoever it was, you need to hire 100 programmers, you have skills or whatever, but then you have to train them. And well, I'll tell you, the Prudential had a program with an organization called WOS. We made the program possible because we found the soldiers to staff it. They spent 9 months learning computer entry. They wound up getting 30 credits from Essex Community College, and they got a job with Prudential. And they were paid $500 a week as they went to classes. So every company should do this.
do you, by the way, do you have any feedback from people who went through program, who were hired by Prudential or other company? Did they stay? Have they stay at the job, or it was not for them?
I don't know.
But maybe you train them and they started and they see they couldn't keep the job because again, it's not a military experience; it's a different world.
Well, we did not follow that up unless someone had a problem and needed our help. When we were honored by the state for placing 70, 80, 90 people with them, there was no way to know if the men were really happy. And the state jobs were phony because the Department of Transportation would tell the guys to go out and work for 2 hours and then disappear. The soldiers are used to working. They were very upset with that. And they turned in their supervisors, and then they got killed. So
killed meaning what?
Fired,
Fired, not killed.
Killed, not dead, not dead. I'm not in the USSR.
No, in the USSR they wouldn't kill the managers either. If somebody would ask me today, what is the biggest problem in the United States, and I live here for about 29 years, I would say drugs. I mean, I think it's an epidemic which is worse than this COVID pandemic. The reason is it kills young people. And I don't see, to be honest with you, I don't see much that the government does. I don't even know how to stop it. But I would assume that when we talk about veterans who couldn't find their place in life, it would be, this problem probably would quadruple, right?
They have many problems with drugs. I grew up with drug addicts. Most of the people I grew up with, 5 or 6 who were close, either died from drug overdoses or wound up in our prisons, Sing Sing, Dannemora, for armed robbery, shootouts. I did not have the utopian Jewish upbringing. My family was broken. My father abandoned us. I was on my own since I was 15 or 16. I was lucky that I was a good athlete and got a basketball scholarship to play for a military school in high school. And then I was able to work 3 jobs and go to college. So I don't think there are any free rides. I don't think anyone is born on third base. I think you'll have to work for it.
Yeah, but people who are on drugs already, is there any way out for them?
I don't think so. Because a young man I helped and sent him to a drug program, the 12-step, which went on for 9 months. He's been taking drugs since he was 11. What can you do with that?
So you don't believe that these programs, these 12-step programs, help at all?
No, it helped him. I
Oh,
think
it did help.
Did help him. Yeah. He started a business. He's not making money at it yet, but he has dreams, and he's on Facebook every couple of days with a selling paragraph about the things he can do, where he wants to mentor people. I was a drug addict.
You?
Yes.
What did you shoot?
I didn't shoot. I never took hard drugs. I smoked.
Yeah, it's not a drug addict.
Well,
These days, there are so many synthetic drugs and everything that marijuana is not considered even a drug.
It was when I was growing up. But my friends shot. They were shooting heroin and cocaine.
All of them are dead by now?
A couple is still in jail. Not to brag, but I was a very good athlete. And maybe not so good. Better than most. And I was able to have successful athletic careers in high school and college. Yeah.
Well, what about suicides among veterans?
I don't understand it. People I've placed, who I remained very close with, are spending as much of their time as they can trying to deal with suicide, because there is no. We need more psychiatrists. We need programs that veterans would go through when they came back to see if they were prone to something like this. It's a horrible, horrible problem. And I don't have the answer. I will think about it and report back to you, because I used to work with gangs for the police in Crown Heights and Bedford-Stuyvesant, where people were all taking drugs and winding up in jail. And so I have a lot of experience with that, and with my friends who were gangsters. They were in the mafia. I'll give that a lot of thought. I don't know.
If there would be, if somebody would ask you, can you give 1 or 2 maybe most important advices for people who are experiencing this trouble, who came back from the military, what would it be?
Someone has to love you. Someone has to love you without reservation.
You mean the family or a girlfriend or something?
Anyone. Someone has to make you feel that you're worth something, that you deserve to be here, that you have value. A person needs two things: a job and someone to love them. And what else is there?
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Carl. So this is basically a very nice and positive
Do you think it
ending
was
for our.
worthwhile?
I think it definitely was worthwhile, and I will publish it online, and I will send you a link, of
Say
course.
that again.
I will publish it online. This conversation, I'll send you a link.
I'd love a link because I'd love to give it to my grandchildren.
Right, and not just the grandchildren. I'm sure there will be some maybe comments to it, and if you will see it, then you will respond. Or if it will be not in English, I can help you with that as well. So let's see what happens.
Я понимаю по-русски.
Oh, I know. Ты понимаешь по-русски. That's about it, right?
Так себе.
Так себе, так себе. Okay, so, all right.
It was wonderful talking to you.
The same here, Carl. And
as soon as we can see each other, our families will get together.
Yes, let's do it. But first, are you planning, by the way, to shot the vaccine when it's available?
Say that again?
Are you planning to vaccinate yourself when it's available?
Oh, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. You're not
I'm
afraid.
the most vulnerable. I had some really bad illnesses, and I'm vulnerable, so I'm very careful.
All right. I see.
My wife is a superwoman, so she can do anything.
No wonder every Superman has a Superwoman nearby.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, say hello to your wife and let's talk.
And the same to you.
Okay.
And you thought this was worthwhile?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. All right. Thanks a lot, Carl.
Thanks a lot, Yakov.
Bye-bye.
Bye.